The Remedy universe has kind of taken over my life, and today's video is a Pepe Sylvia style video. If you know, you know.
Jesus Christ,
That right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay?
Now I'm stressed because this rabbit hole has been going since 2013 with the beginning of Alan Wake 1, and it's continued into American Nightmare, then Control, and now Alan Wake 2. We have all of this story leading up to where we are today, right? There's so much to go into. Like, I'm going to start off with Thomas Zane. There's just so many theories around who he is, what his motivations actually are, and all I got in the sequel are more questions. I have many questions about this man. So initially, when Alan goes in to meet Thomas Zane, they don't trust each other, okay? Alan, rightfully so, does not trust this man. Thomas also seems to not be fully telling the truth about his intentions or who he is or what's going on. So in my brain, this is what my brain came up with. So we know that Scratch is essentially Alan when he is being possessed by the dark presence. But then I started to think that maybe Alan already existed, but he was like, his story was written by Thomas, the same way that Saga ends up helping Alan in this game. It just kind of feels like they're setting it up to really emphasize how influential you can be towards reality in the dark place. Because I have this theory, right? I told you this is gonna be a Pepe Sylvia ass video. Okay, let me organize my thoughts a little bit, because I literally just hit record. Nothing is written, this is just off the top of the dome. The clicker is very important in this story, right? But in the first one, they kind of make it a point to have Thomas narrate the page introducing the clicker, right? Follow me?
He took a deep breath and jumped.
My mind swirled. I'd given the clicker to Alice, yet it was here. Zane had written it into existence in a story I had written.
He only reads that one page, right? Which is kind of telling us as the audience, like, hey, he wrote this page. He wrote this section of the story. And you know how in part 2, they're trying to really hammer home the idea that anything that you create in the dark place, like anything that you write creatively, can alter the reality or the course of what happens in someone's life when they're the subject of the story, right? Alan was the subject of the story in the first one. It's like his whole storyline was kind of manipulated by Thomas so that he could free Barbara and himself from the dark place. You following me? Okay. It feels like the clicker was created by Thomas, and the page that he wrote kind of retconned the way that it was introduced into his life. So here we have Alan, who's like, yes, I remember the clicker. I remember this. My mom gave this to me when I was a child. But that's literally what it says on the page. So how can we know that it was actually his mom who gave him this to conquer his fear of the light, right? Having that in mind, okay, how can we be so sure that Thomas is doing this for the good of Alan? In my mind, he feels like someone who is desperate to get himself out. Or this could be a version of Thomas that Alan is writing because there's no Thomas in the dark place anymore. It feels like at the end of the first game's DLC that Thomas is gone. Thomas isn't in the dark place anymore. At least Thomas the poet as we knew him in the first game, he's not there anymore. So it leads me to believe that maybe the Alan from the Control DLC I mean, not the Alan, I'm sorry, the Thomas from the Control DLC and the Thomas in Alan Wake 2, they seem like two different people. Comparing them to Alan Wake 1's Thomas, and like they just seem like two different people. Is this like a case of maybe Alan like fucking with shit that he's not supposed to? You know how in Alan Wake 2 there's a point where Mr. Door is telling Alan, I don't even think you know who's under your mask, because Alan is like, hey, mask come off, right? And Mr. Door is like, bro, I'm gonna be honest with you, you're opening doors and you're fucking with shit that you're not supposed to. I feel like something's gotta give here, sir. Where was I going with this? It feels like Alan's pursuit for the escape of the dark place is kind of messing with a lot of versions of reality that were real before. I don't know, I finished the final draft and I've just been thinking about all the various like plot threads that are going through this game, and I'm burnt out, bro. I had to make a video about this because I will sit in my living room and I'll just be sitting there, it's silent, and I'm just like, that was very interesting. Like, I'll just think about a section of the game, just a really random section, and I'll be like, that's quite interesting. The clicker in particular has really been bothering me because they mention in this game that it was attached to Thomas Zane's favorite lamp. So all that does is further prove my theory. And I don't know if they put that in there just to fuck with us and see like what we'd like think about it, but I am so under the impression that the clicker is an object of power that was created by Thomas. But if he created it, does that not also make him a para-utilitarian? So then it kind of feels like Thomas is a version of Alan from the dark place. And I'm just like, how would that make sense though? As much as I want to believe that theory, it kind of makes it so convoluted that I don't want it to be the answer. Because I already have enough with Scratch being Alan possessed by the dark presence. That already fucked me up because we know that in American Nightmare you destroy Scratch, his physical body. So yeah, it makes sense that now there's something else that will create Scratch in its place because you can't just rip it from existence. And now I'm just like, there's just so much. Another thing that I want to point out. In the first scene that we see with Thomas and Alan in the dark place, that little montage where they're dancing, the little montage where they're dancing and that's apparently them writing Return together as a Scratch and Zane collaboration, the song that plays over that sequence is the Happy song from American Nightmare. And I'm just here like, that had to have been intentional, right? Or am I just looking too far into it? I'm telling you, Remedy, y'all know what you're doing here because I have no words. There's just so much. Yeah. Also, I really liked Ilmo and Yako Koskela. I love them so fucking much.
Many local attractions have recently become fenced off by the government. And that's why at Koskela Brothers Adventure Tours, we say, fuck the government. We have both cutters. Oh, wow. You think of everything.
Finding out that they were part of the cult was great. Their storyline was wonderful. What blows my mind is how they're able to connect so many things in the game to, like, you could easily miss this, is what I'm gonna say. Yako has 2 kids. His 2 kids are the 2 thermoses that we see at Deerfest. Now, bear in mind that in this plot, Yako dies. He just dies, right? Poor Ilmo is grieving his brother who he lost. He just saw fucking Scratch murder the fuck out of him. He still has to protect the city because it's part of, they signed up for it. They're the cult, they take care of the taken in the town, and yeah, it's part of the job. But in one of the later commercials, I'm pretty sure it's the last one that you can pick up, there's a commercial with Ilmo doing it by himself, and it keeps panning over to an empty space. And
Alan Wake's brilliance is on full display with his choice of a hardcover book jacket made of a premium enamel stock with gloss lamination that is both tasteful and pleasant to the touch. Isn't that right?
how this game is able to make you care about these new characters that literally you didn't know existed. They were not in the first one, but it gave life to this game. Like, most of this game was characters that we haven't met before, and they introduced them so well. Back to my board, okay? Back to my board. I want to know how all of this is gonna tie into Control, because if you remember, during the DLC you get like an alert at the Control headquarters that something is happening at Cauldron Lake in the future. Like, are we gonna go out there and investigate? Are we gonna send backup? Because Estevez clearly has not been able to communicate with anyone, and her whole team is just dead. Honestly, I have another playthrough in me. There is a lot that I missed, a lot that I want to talk about. I'm going to play it again, and I'm going to write notes this time, because there is a lot that I want to talk about that isn't coming to mind right now, because my mind is racing, as it does. Yeah, we're gonna do a follow-up, and we're gonna talk more in depth about theories that I have about this game and what we're gonna do with the next one, or what they're gonna do with the next one, because obviously I wasn't on the team. I didn't work on it. I just loved it. It was a great game. Go buy it. Also, guys, Ati, I am someone who has been obsessed with Ati since Control. I did a whole video about how Control took over my life in 2021, and it's over here somewhere. But Ati being in this game, it did things for me. Every time I heard him humming somewhere, it warmed my heart. I love Ati, okay? I love Ati. Knowing that this is the place where he was going when he was on vacation is like... They even mention Ati saying that he needs a new job, and he was like, how about the Federal Bureau of Control? That was in Yotonyo, right? I think so. But having little snippets of Ati throughout this game, it really solidifies the fact that this man is an utter god. How do you just happen to be in all these places? Just randomly here as a guiding light, not just for Jesse or just for Saga, for Alan too. He's the guiding light for everybody in this game. Like, my feels, bro. When you get to Watery and he's just there singing, this game is so underrated, guys. I wish more people took the time to just bond with these games, because I know a lot of people weren't really fans of Control, and I understand, trust me. It took me like 3 tries for me to actually make it somewhere in Control, because the combat was so hard for me. I am not someone who plays shooting games, so it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that I was really bad at Control. But once I started getting into it, there's just this rich story in there. And yeah, Alan basically forced the events of Control to happen. Or rather, he was able to facilitate a lot of what happened there through his story so that he could have Jesse save the day later on. I'm in awe a lot of the time, because I'm like, nothing has really hit me like this in video games since Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy X is like, what would I even call it? It's my beacon of light. But yeah, it's very hard to find games that have a nice balance of a great story and really satisfying gameplay. Alan Wake 1 kind of didn't accomplish the satisfying gameplay part. It was very clunky, I get that. But the story is what carried me through that experience, and I'm so happy that I did, thanks to Control. So yeah, this is, I don't even know what I would title this. This would just be the ramblings of a crazy person who just finished Alan Wake 2. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening to me babble. This has been Pepe Sylvia, and I'm out.